He never talked about his past, never wore a uniform. To them, he was just a quiet old man who rented out his boat for a few bucks. They had no idea they had just placed their lives in the hands of the Ghost of the Coast, a Coast Guard legend who had performed more deep-sea rescues than anyone alive. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this tale of arrogance, nature's fury, and the quiet master who tamed it, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you believe true legends don't need to announce themselves, hit that subscribe button. Let's make sure their stories are never forgotten. The air at Sparrowfin Dock tasted of brine, diesel, and history. It was a place untouched by modern gloss, a splintered finger of wood pointing out into the vast, indifferent blue of the Atlantic. Here, a boat named the Wanderer rested in its slip. She wasn't pretty. Her white paint was peeling, revealing layers of older blues and greens like the rings of a tree. Her brass fittings were tarnished by salt, and her deck was worn smooth by decades of footsteps. But she sat in the water with an unshakable poise, a quiet confidence that her captain, a man named Silas, mirrored perfectly. Silas moved about the deck making his morning preparations. His hands, gnarled and scarred, worked with a fluid economy of motion, coiling a thick mooring line not with haste, but with a rhythm that seemed to be in sync with the gentle lapping of the waves. His face was a testament to a life lived outdoors, a cartography of fine lines etched by sun and squinting at distant horizons. The sharp, artificial sound of a luxury car's alarm chirping cut through the morning calm. 4 young men emerged, looking profoundly out of place. They were an invasion of bright synthetic fabrics and loud voices. Their leader, Leo, sported a gleaming diver's watch that cost more than Silas's entire boat. He surveyed the Wanderer with a wry smirk. "You've got to be kidding me," he said, his voice carrying across the water. "This is our charter. It looks like a prop from a pirate movie." Mark, the group's jester, laughed loudly. "Hey, I bet it's authentic. Probably runs on steam and good intentions." "Hey, Captain," he called out, his tone dripping with condescension. "You got Wi-Fi on this thing, or should I just try to get a signal from a passing cloud?" Silas paused his work, his gaze lifting slowly to meet theirs. His eyes, a pale, washed-out blue, held no anger, only a placid stillness. "No Wi-Fi," he stated, his voice a low rumble. "Out here, you find a different kind of connection." Ethan, the group's self-appointed documentarian, was already filming with a top-of-the-line smartphone gimbal. "This is gold, guys. #retro fishing trip. The algorithm's gonna love this." He zoomed in on a patch of peeling paint. Only Ben, the 4th, seemed uneasy. He watched Silas check a knot, the movement so practiced and certain it was like watching a musician tune an instrument. He saw a quiet competence that his friends, blinded by their own self-importance, had missed entirely. He zipped his jacket, a knot of apprehension tightening in his stomach. Leo dismissed Silas with a wave of his hand and turned to his friends. "Whatever, the boat's just a platform. My new satellite weather system is linked directly to NOAA. It can predict a rogue wave from a mile away. We've got the tech. He's just the taxi driver." He clapped his hands together. "Let's get this show on the road, Pops." "We've got fish to catch and content to create." Silas simply gave a final firm tug on the rope and said, "As you wish." He didn't betray the fact that he'd already noticed something the satellite hadn't, the unusual southerly shift in the breeze, a scent on the air that was sharper than just salt. He had seen the sky before. For the first 3 hours, the young men's world was perfect. Their technology was triumphant. Leo's digital fish finder chirped excitedly, leading them to a spot teeming with life. Mark and Ethan reeled in fish after fish, their whoops of victory echoing across the calm water. The Bluetooth speaker, perched precariously on a bait box, blasted a playlist of chart-topping hits, a sterile, thumping heartbeat on the vast, living ocean. "See, this is how it's done," Leo announced, holding up his phone to show Silas the glowing screen of the weather app. Clear skies, 10-knot winds, 0% chance of precipitation. Flawless. You can't get this from looking at the clouds, old-timer. Silas was at the helm, his hand resting lightly on the wooden wheel. He had been watching a flock of petrels, birds of the deep ocean, flying low and fast toward the shore. A sign. "Birds are heading in," he observed, his voice almost lost in the music. "They're probably just going to lunch," Mark shot back, laughing as he posed for a photo with his catch. Unseen by the others, Silas began his quiet ritual. He subtly shifted the weight on the boat, moving a heavy cooler from starboard to port. He checked the latches on the forward hatch, ensuring they were tight. He pulled a length of old worn rope from a locker and methodically secured the spare fuel cans to the railing. Each action was small, almost invisible, but together they were the deliberate preparations of a man bracing for an impact he knew was coming. Ben saw him. He saw the quiet, purposeful movements in the way the old captain's eyes kept scanning the horizon, not for fish, but for something else. He lowered his own fishing rod, the festive mood suddenly feeling hollow and fragile. "Hey, Leo," he said quietly. "Maybe we should listen to him. He seems old, Ben." Leo cut him off. "Relax. Have a little faith in $100 billion of satellite infrastructure, not in some fisherman's tall tales." The change, when it came, was terrifyingly swift. It was as if the ocean had been holding its breath and finally, violently, exhaled. The sky didn't just darken, it collapsed, the color shifting from a brilliant blue to a bruised, malevolent purple-gray in a matter of minutes. The wind stopped being a breeze and became a physical wall of force that tore the hats from their heads, and the waves, once gentle swells, rose up like jagged liquid mountains, their peaks frothing with white rage. The first wave hit them broadside. It wasn't water. It was a solid liquid wall that slammed into the Wanderer with the force of a car crash. The boat shuddered violently, and the cheerful music was instantly silenced as the speaker was swallowed by the sea. Panic erupted. "Leo, what the hell is this?" Mark screamed, his face ashen. "Your app said clear skies." Leo stared at his phone, his knuckles white. The screen was a frozen, useless image. "No service. It's got no signal." The expensive GPS unit mounted on the console flickered once, twice, then died, its screen a black mocking void. They were electronically blind. Ethan, who had been trying to film the dramatic waves, was thrown across the deck. His phone flew from his hand, a tiny technological sacrifice to the storm. For the first time all day, he was seeing the world not through a screen, but with his own terrified eyes. They were a tiny, insignificant speck in a world of roaring wind and heaving, mountainous water. The shore had vanished. The sky and the sea had merged into one chaotic, gray nightmare. Their confidence, their technology, their arrogance, it all dissolved in the face of the storm's raw, untamable power. As chaos consumed the four young men, Silas became its anchor. The storm that unmade them seemed to be the element in which he was truly forged. He stood at the helm, his worn boots planted firmly on the deck, his body moving in a fluid, intuitive dance with the boat's violent bucking. He wasn't fighting the waves, he was reading them. He steered not away from the towering walls of water, but into their deep troughs, using their momentum, turning the prow at the last possible second to slice through their crests rather than be crushed by them. Leo, his face slick with rain and fear, crawled on his hands and knees towards the helm. "We have to radio for help. Call the Coast Guard." Silas's eyes never left the maelstrom. In this, a radio's just a box of static. You can't call for help if you can't tell them where you are, and they can't reach you if the ocean doesn't let them. He reached into the small, salt-stained wooden box beside the wheel. His hand emerged not with a piece of electronics, but with a heavy brass-cased compass. It was beautiful, ancient. He tapped the glass, and the needle, though trembling, pointed north with unwavering conviction. He steered, his gaze flicking from the compass to the pattern of the waves to the roiling sky. Then, for a fleeting heartbeat, a tear appeared in the thick cloud cover. Through it, a single brilliant pinprick of light shone through, Polaris, the North Star. It was visible for less than 3 seconds, but for Silas, it was a lighthouse, it was a map, it was a promise. "Hold fast," he commanded. It wasn't a shout, but the voice of absolute authority, a voice that cut through the gale and found purchase in their terrified souls. They obeyed without question. For the next 2 hours, they witnessed a master at his craft. It was a primal, breathtaking display of knowledge that no manual could contain. Silas was reading the story of the storm, a language written in the shape of the swell and the direction of the spray. He was home. Just as suddenly as it began, the storm broke. The wind lessened to a mournful howl, the waves subsided, and the rain softened to a drizzle. Through the mist, a single blinking light appeared, the lighthouse beacon of a tiny sheltered harbor they didn't recognize. Silas guided the wanderer through the channel with the same calm precision he had shown in the heart of the storm. As they tied up at the guest dock, the 4 young men collapsed onto the solid, unmoving wood, their bodies trembling. The harbor master, a weathered man with a thick beard, emerged from his shack, peering at them. "Lord Almighty," he breathed, "we thought no one would be foolish enough to be out in that. How in God's name did you make it back?" Before they could answer, he saw Silas stepping off the boat. The harbor master's expression shifted from shock to something else entirely, a deep, profound reverence. He walked past the 4 boys and straight to Silas, extending a hand. "Silas, I should have known. If anyone could navigate that monster, it'd be you." He turned back to the boys. "You have any idea who this is?" he asked, a twinkle in his eye. "You weren't just on some old fishing boat. You were on the Ark, and that," he said, pointing a thumb at Silas, "is Noah himself." He led them into his small office. On the wall, among tide charts and faded photos, was a large framed newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The headline, in bold black letters, read, "Ghost of the Coast pulls 14 from watery grave as hurricane hits." Below, it was a grainy photo of a younger Silas, his face grim with exhaustion, helping a shivering survivor onto a rescue vessel in the middle of a sea that looked like a vision of hell. "He never lost a soul," the harbor master said softly. "Not one. They called him the Ghost because he'd go into storms no one else would dare. No radar, no GPS back then, just that compass, his knowledge, and a will of iron. He retired, said he'd had enough of the noise, never talks about it. But the sea remembers." The 4 young men were silent, the weight of their ignorance pressing down on them. They looked from the hero in the photo to the quiet old man outside, patiently hosing the salt from his deck. The next morning, they found him in the same spot, mending a net. Leo, stripped of all his bravado, stepped forward. "Sir," he said, the word no longer a joke, "there's no excuse for how we acted. We were arrogant, and we were wrong. Thank you." Silas didn't stop his work, but his hands paused for a moment. He looked up, his pale blue eyes meeting theirs, one by one. "The ocean has a way of teaching you what's important," he said, his voice calm and even. "It doesn't care about your watch or your phone. It tests what's inside you. All you did yesterday was take a test you didn't know you were studying for. Next time, you'll be better prepared." He gave a final small nod and returned to his net. The lesson was over. He had given them their lives, and in return, a piece of wisdom far more valuable than the price of any charter. True mastery is not loud. It doesn't need applause or recognition. It exists in the quiet confidence of a job well done. in the practiced hands of those who have faced the storm and returned. Silas was a living legend, not because of the stories told about him, but because of the lives he touched and the lessons he taught without ever intending to. So now, I ask you, have you ever met a quiet master like Silas, someone whose deep well of knowledge was hidden behind a humble exterior? Share their story in the comments below. Let us honor the silent giants who walk among us. Thank you for watching The Human Stories. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Help us keep these incredible legacies alive. We'll see you in the next one. And until then, remember that the wisest person in the room is often the one who says the least.